This is Reality Check. I'm Matt.
And I'm Chris. We're two licensed therapists.
And two military veterans.
And we're here to smash societal fantasy
so you can live in reality. Welcome back to Reality Check.
Today's Reality Check, many experts are frauds.
This is something that we get very irritated about because we can speak on a podcast like this, we can speak publicly, say at a university or on a talk show, and if somebody decides to label us an expert, then our words are somehow like words of deity that have to be trusted, and what if we're frauds? That's one of the problems here, is when you are a person who doesn't have a specialty in a certain area, you want to trust an expert, but you might just be trusting an expert with this blanket kind of a trust that can really get you burned. For example, attorneys, I've had a lot of attorneys for different reasons over the years. In business, you need attorneys, and some of them are idiots.
Yeah.
And some of them have these reputations, and you think to yourself, how in the world did I get this recommendation for this attorney who's an idiot?
Right.
And this happens a lot. So just because someone is an expert does not mean they're an expert.
No. And I think one thing in particular that's frustrating for me, Matt, is in our field is constantly under fire. Like, we could do a whole nother reality check on the media's portrayal of therapists and mental health workers in general. But a lot of times out there in society, you have a lot of people that project themselves onto their clients. You have a lot of people that don't care. You have a lot of people that will just take money and say things and don't do their due diligence. They don't actually work with any sort of ethic or scruples. So then when it comes time for our work to start, then we have to work through all of that mistrust and all of that stigma and all of that just incompetence from other experts to effectively do our job before it even begins.
That's happened to me many times. I've heard the statement many times. I have been able to generally work through this, but it's essentially poison before you started, because someone will come in, my wife, my girlfriend, or whoever, drag me in here, kicking and screaming, and I didn't want to be here because I don't want to sit in front of a quack.
Right.
When it goes well, they'll say things afterwards like, "Oh, I did not expect this. This changed my view of therapy." And I'm grateful when that's able to happen, but I'm also irritated that the waters were poisoned in the first place.
Right.
Because of these people who should be experts and are not. I can't tell you how many times people have said things like, "I was over at this other guy's office and I just felt like I was warming his couch and helping him build his house by the lake." Because I wasn't really getting anything, and he's just making his money, right? So experts, now there are a lot of times where we listen to experts and they do a lot of harm. Now, one thing that I want to bring up too is people who are mental health experts, let's say they are, and they'll be portrayed this on TV. By TV, I don't mean TV shows. I mean on the news and things. Like, for example, with Donald Trump, where you'll have a psychologist come out there and diagnose Donald Trump as a narcissist. Which, for one, you have to understand, we're not supposed to do that. Even if I knew that was correct, even if I knew it, I'd be breaking confidentiality if I said it. That's one point. Another point is, do you know the guy personally? Has he sat in your office? Did he ask you to diagnose him? And the final point, which is the most important, is this: is he's not even a narcissist. If you know what a narcissist is, narcissists try to hide who they are.
Exactly.
You might not like the guy, but he definitely doesn't hide who he is.
Yeah. Usually people never know what a true narcissist is, because 8 out of 10 people shook hands with a narcissist, never knew it. Because they're always the best people, the best leaders, the best deacons at the church, the best leaders of a Boy Scout troop, the best everything. And they're always above reproach, quote unquote.
So if he was a true narcissist, you wouldn't know it, unless maybe you were in his inner circle. Those are the only people that usually will see it. And those people get brainwashed over time to think the person is actually a good person when they're not. But the point is this. One, these people who diagnose him as such is wrong. If you wanted to diagnose him as a bullheaded guy, like maybe you'd be correct, I don't know. You can like him or hate him, but he's not a narcissist. 2, it's inappropriate to diagnose someone who's not your client. And 3, even if so, you'd be breaking confidentiality by publicizing it, right? So it's wrong all across the board. So if we're gonna be experts, we've gotta do things right. We can't say one thing and then do another thing.
Right.
And that's only one side of it, the ethical side of it. The other side of it is the competence side of it.
Yeah. Well, ethics and competence. Like, I'm going to go after one of the white whales of the mental health field, Dr. Phil. One, he's not actually a real doctor.
No, he's not.
Let's go start with that. And two, so you and I, same wavelength as far as client care. We need clients to trust us. We need clients to be vulnerable. Like, therapy is supposed to be an atmosphere of mental growth and mental challenge and finding yourself. How do you do that on TV? With a million cameras in your face, there's no privacy, there's no vulnerability, there's no trust. You have some a-hole in a chair that's literally the facilitator of other people's entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a more sophisticated, if you will, Jerry Springer show.
Mm-hmm.
It's portrayed that way. But anyone who is a therapist can watch 5 minutes of Dr. Phil doing therapy and know that he's no good at it whatsoever. All he does is he'll look at someone, what you need to do. Right. I mean, and no therapist worth their salt is ever going to point their finger at a client's face and tell them what they need to do.
Yep.
You know, and he makes these decisions on what they need to do with very little information.
Right.
And he just has to create a public show for everyone and something that's going to generate income. And it's not about helping the person, it's about generating income. So one thing we do with experts is we want to challenge, we want to know if these people are actually worthwhile. Follow the money. See what they're incentivized to say. They could be genuine, but when there's a lot of money at stake for saying something, like for example a Dr. Fauci who has all kinds of financial incentives to say a lot of things, and whether you agree or disagree with what he was saying, he was not very competent. And it doesn't take much of an expert to recognize another false expert, and the kind of almost discipleship, if you will, that was created by Dr. Fauci. I heard people who you would otherwise think were intelligent people talking about Dr. Fauci and call him their guiding light and things of that nature. When if you look at Dr. Fauci's history, he's failed his entire career.
40, 50 years of being wrong. Wrong on COVID, wrong on AIDS, wrong on the flu, like the list goes on. One thing that I want to get to, so we've got macro examples, like let's take a micro lens right now. So, you know, one of the things that I do is I take in children that have a lot of trauma, that have a lot of abuse, and I do what a lot of clinicians don't. Like, I will actively go to court and advocate for clients, right? So my job gets harder when I have some parents that may or may not have abused their children get seen by experts, we'll use the term in this case very lightly, and they draft letters like the one I'm about to read you. So this letter was drafted by a doctor's level, PhD level psychologist, and it reads the following. So the psychologist providing this letter to the client is for the purposes of being able to share with whoever the client chooses to share it with. In the psychologist's opinion, the client seems to be a sincere and genuine person. The client is reported to be a valued hard worker in his job. The client has a good family and good friend support system. The client does not open up about the client's feelings, but he's working on that. The client says that he is not depressed. The client does get stressed about paying bills. The client reports that he's healing from physical wounds, but the client has a positive outlook on the future.
That is atrocious in so many ways. Now, people who have never read a report like that might not understand why it's so bad. So probably to do this justice, we need to explain why that's so bad.
Let's go level one, right? So doctor's level psychologist. This means, for those of you at home, this means that a psychologist is somebody who specializes in testing, formal testing for mental disorders. Rarely are they therapists. Sometimes I've met one that was actually a competent therapist, but most of the time they do testing. A doctor's level psychologist has the access to do literally whatever mental health testing that they want. They have no restrictions, the whole world is open to them. But let's look at what the letter says. A lot of what the letter says is opinion. A lot of what the letter says is self-report. A lot of what the letter says is reported by others, but doesn't specify what others are, right? And usually the times when you talk about abuse cases, a lot of abusers, they line up the most sparkling reviews imaginable by, people who have something to lose if the client is seen less than stellar, right? So there was no formalized testing, no formal diagnosis, no formal prognosis, nothing that says that this letter could have been completed by a Walmart greeter. This letter could have been completed by a Walmart greeter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you pretty well covered it. The intent of the letter is to inform another professional as to the psychological functioning, right, and the safety with children in regards to this individual,
Right.
Which none of this even begins to do. The only redeeming quality about this letter is that any professional worth their salt will laugh when they read it, and they'll discard it immediately.
So I did a lot of angry laughing because, I like to use blown up examples to prove a point, right? So let's say I'm this doctor's level psychologist and Jeffrey Dahmer's my client, right? They just released a thing on him with Netflix.
Yep.
And hey guys, Jeffrey's okay. Not only did Jeffrey tell me, but Jeffrey pinky promised me that he doesn't want to eat people anymore. He just wants to have people over for dinner.
Right. Yeah, that's your equivalent.
Yes.
So, and to really put this in context, we're talking about the safety of children here,
Yes.
and that's the level of quality that we're getting. It's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
The point of all of this is just because someone is an expert does not make them competent. It doesn't actually make them an expert. And we as a general population of people, because we're only experts in this field,
Yeah.
right? But I'm not an expert in the law, right? I'm not an expert in microbiology. So we have to rely on other experts. So the only way to do it is to understand how to challenge it. If you're going to listen to someone about something that matters, know how to go in and challenge it. How do I know what I said about Dr. Fauci? I did my homework.
Right.
Right? When you do your homework, and I've gotten to know biologists and things, and I've gotten to know people in this field, right? And I've come to understand how they talk and what certain standards are for professionalism. And he meets none of them.
No.
And all you have to do is do a little bit of your homework, and you start to realize he's not the cream of the crop.
Right.
He's not the person who should have been put in that position. Again, you can agree or disagree with how the lockdown went and all of that. That's not the point. The point was you had an incompetent person, and he is, put in a position that people blindly trusted. So we need to stop blindly trusting people, because then we're going to go astray pretty quickly, and we're going to screw ourselves up in so many ways because we just blindly trust and we're not thinking for ourselves.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. And again, you have to know the motive of the person that you're seeing. So I'll go back to my letter. So 3 possibles, right? So first one, most likely, this client paid this clinician a one-shot fee, sat with the client for 20 minutes, client told everything the doctor's level psychologist needed to hear to make a 4-sentence letter, right? Second, and this is only because I fear the third, the second is the person's just incompetent. Got their PhD from, they just printed it off the internet or got it from somewhere that has no scruples, and just can't do their job. They have no ability to effectively do their job. And the last one scares me the most, but the clinician could just be a quack. The clinician could actually have all the tools, but for some personal reason, chooses not to do their job.
Right, so to wrap this up, your doctor might be a quack, your attorney might be a quack, your child's 3rd grade teacher might be a quack. Anybody who is supposed to be an expert could be a quack, could be unprofessional, could be paid money, have ulterior motives, even if it's not money, maybe power or something else. And it's our job to be informed. It's our job to challenge. And if someone says they're an expert, that means nothing to me. until I see the rest.
Yep.
And that's how we have to approach it, or we're just gonna keep getting duped. All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Reality Check. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below.
And if you know anyone else that could use a reality check, share the link.
See you next time.